Hello, everyone. It's great to see you back here at Silver Tears Tarot. And of course, a warm welcome to anyone who is joining us for the first time. So it's time for our mid month check in from the soulmate perspective. So if we look back at the beginning of the month, the feelings were complex. There was a lot going on. There are things shifting for a lot of your people in their households and in your person's thoughts about their life. There are new truths and perspectives that are coming out, and in some cases, getting pushed away or denied. And emotions have been bubbling up toward the surface. Something has been getting a varied emotional response across this collective, as well as with your soulmates. So, as always, it's a general reading, it's for all signs. It's possible the readings aren't going to resonate with everyone, but if you get one that does, please do hit like and subscribe so that you can stick with me because these readings have all been very much connected to one another. So it's time to pick out your pile. They all have fluorite on them today. So we've got pile one, pile two, and pile three. I would say don't overthink it. Just let yourself drift toward one of the piles. Watch a couple of them if you want. I know some of you routinely like to watch all three. So if you chose pile one, it'll be up just next. Or if you chose pile two or three, you can get at the linked timestamps below. So pick your pile and let's get started. All right. And so getting things started out with pile one. I love this one because so they're all fluorite, but this one it's light colored and it kind of has these veins. It's probably hard to see some of it on camera, but some of it you can just kind of get lost in. It looks like there's some really neat, shiny bits in there that I'm trying to get it to show up. Anyway, I'm going to read for you with the Mystic Mondays Tarot, and then I'm going to clarify with the Black Tarot. And we're looking to see what's happening with your soulmates and you in the back half of February. So if you saw the general reading yesterday, you will know that we've seen a lot of moving into a position to be able to use some of what we've learned, but we now see that that's going to start to happen. You get to start using it. You get to actually see it go into action mode. So let's see how your person is feeling about this right off, how they're feeling as they head into the back half of February about you, about the situation, about the relationship that the two of you have shared. A lot of you are in separation, so it's going to be an interesting feeling because this learning what you've used, it's learning what the two of you have used, have learned in separation. So we have the Temperance card, and with the Temperance card, we have seen this. This has been so elusive. This balance that's like a hard won balance, and your person is feeling like they have done this. This is not the day-to-day balance. This is that big, serious, overall necessary balance. We'll have to get in a little bit closer because I think we're always seeking to improve upon that. We're always um, wanting to get there, but this is like a really harmonious feeling that they're having. And they're having it about you and about this situation. So it's having found some balance and some harmony, but we'll have to see what that means and dig into it a little bit more. Let's see what the energy is that is most prevalent as you go across the month. This is that most prevalent energy as you go across the month, and we have the sense of something not yet being over. So this is going to be the end of a cycle, but the end hasn't come yet. So it's like the ride stopped, but you realize, no, no, we haven't completed everything. What about all those loops over there? We haven't done everything. So there's this sense of lack of completion between the two of you. There's a sense of things not being at their logical end, or even that you can't accept that they would be at their end. But your person has found some kind of balance with regard to this, and you are part of what gives them that sense of balance. So let's see what's coming here in the energy for the two of you. And we've got the Eight of Swords. So this is a card of overthinking. It's also a card of self-imprisonment, okay? And so this is when you kind of get ahead of yourself with regard to thinking, or you get too deeply into it and start to come up with issues that haven't happened yet, or reasons why you can't do what you want to do. It's like an excuse feeling. It's a feeling of it's there's anxiety in there, and it's part of what's coming. So one of the reasons that we look up what's coming in your direction is so that you can be prepared for it. That way, if you look at it and you say, I really am not interested in experiencing all of this, this self-limiting sort of energy, then you can go into it knowing to look for that, knowing to look for that. And when we clarify, we'll learn a little bit more about this. So maybe we can see what it is that you might be able to look for, so that you can avoid that feeling of overthinking. Just know it's kind of heading your direction, but also know that that showed up in the reading yesterday. That was more of a general reading. So it's something that you'll be contending with on multiple levels, not just within the soulmate situation. So let's look at what a critical energy is that's impacting you at this time. A critical energy impacting you at this time. We've got the Knight of Cups. This is keeping something quiet, but more than just quiet, it's a lack of motion forward. It's not allowing yourself to flirt. It's not allowing yourself to reach out. It's something that isn't happening. And there's a feeling of almost a lack of inspiration that comes along with it. So, this is something that is occurring in someone's energy, might be a little bit of both of your energies, where it crosses the line from feeling laid back and balanced to feeling almost like I can't move through this heavy syrup. And that's almost a depression sort of feeling. So, it's just something to think about. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's just difficult to tell how you're going to interact with it. So, be aware that when you see this, when you start to feel this energy around the edges, you can navigate it, but it may be something that don't be surprised to see it there in the shadows. That little bit of a feeling of lack of motivation, lack of inspiration, um, wanting to take you down, but don't let it. It also can't take you down unless you let it. Not the way that this feels. So looking into the hidden energies next. This is going to be what you can't see from where you're standing, but it's also going to be something that helps you to better understand something that has been a source of misunderstanding between you and your person. So this could be anything. This could be something that they're feeling, could be something that you're feeling and maybe just hadn't really thought it through that way. Okay, so we've got the King of Swords. This one's mutual. It doesn't. Sometimes when we pull energy as readers, sometimes when we pull energy, we're pulling the energy that's happening potentially between two people if it's a soulmate reading, and sometimes it's evident whose energy it is or which side it's heavier on, and sometimes it's not so obvious. In this case, it feels like it's shared. And what is happening here is a sense of not having wanted to take the whole big picture into consideration. There is something inconvenient about the big picture that causes both of you to say it sure would be more convenient if we could just not think about this. And so this is something that happened when the two of you were very active together, when things were more positive. As things start to break down around the edges, you start to realize, okay, but panning out, maybe there were going to be other issues with this as well. And that's when you start to say, hey, you know what? I should have seen some of these red flags coming. I should have known that this was going to be an issue. And I would just say, don't be too hard on yourself. It's part of this Eight of Swords feeling. Don't be too hard on yourself, because sometimes it really is not that something is completely buried, just that it takes you turning a corner to be able to see it. And so being able to see this big picture. So, yes, perhaps there is some sense of denial on both parts that was going on. But what you're finding now is not so much here's what you should have known as much as here's what you now know. So, your best bet and your best usage of energy is to take that going forward and not worry too much about what's happened in the past. But hopefully, it helps you to work through some kind of misconceptions or misunderstandings, just to know that both of you were looking at it a little bit myopically and possibly zooming in a little too much, and maybe missing some red flags in the process that you would have seen had you taken a step back or been able to pan out. Um, let's see how you can prepare. What is it that you can do to prepare for the energy that's coming to you? And we know we've got that Eight of Swords energy coming to you, which is kind of a challenging energy, but it's also one that will it's something that you'll be able to work through, and you have some control there. So that's the good thing about the about this energy, this Eight of Swords energy. And what I'm seeing here is that you've got some change that wants to come to you. In the previous readings, we've seen some death card reversed, and it's been about change that wants to happen but hasn't had the opportunity to do so yet. And so, what we have here is the change knocking on your door, and you have the opportunity to let it in. And if you do let that change in, you're far from incurring more of this. You're actually going to reduce this Eight of Swords sort of feeling. This Eight of Swords feeling is going to be stronger if you don't let the change in. That's the lesson here. And that's what you can be doing to prepare for it, is to be receptive to the change that's coming your way. Watch for it to be a change in thinking around the way that your relationship works with your person, but it may be a more global thought than that. So, just something to think about. Let's jump in here and clarify before we go to the extended, because I kind of feel like there are a couple of places where we might want to probe in the extended. And what I'm currently thinking is that when we go into there, we might look a little bit more into what this temperance is. First of all, temperance is not really how we that's not the cards that have been coming out to talk about how your person has been feeling lately. I think we want to go a little bit deeper into that. But I guess as we see it play out with that energy that's kind of in your backdrop of things not quite being over yet and what you're heading toward, I think it'll be good to know how they're feeling, but also what else is what else you need to know about what's coming your way and how best to handle it. That we'll get into that when we get into the extended. So let's start first with clarifying. We're going to clarify the temperance card. Um, okay, so the temperance card, when we get in here, the first thing that comes out is the Ace of Cups. So they have found this balance in, I want to say, a little bit of an artificial way, because they've shut down the some of the emotion and some of the emotional flow that helps to keep them feeling alive. They've shut down a little bit of this. So it fits in with this Knight of Cups feeling that moves almost toward depression, because the way they found this balance is to shut off something that will have made them very happy. So that is they're feeling a little bit better about things, but it's because they figured out how to compartmentalize it a little bit better. So it's not necessarily them actually finding that hard won balance, but it is a perception of it. So that's going to give them a little bit of a breather, but it's also bugging them and moving them towards something that feels suspiciously like depression. And then you've also got this overthinking, which is energy that is going to impact them too. So when I put that out there as energy that you were going to be moving toward, I meant you plural. So it's both of you that are moving toward that Eight of Swords, and you're the one watching the reading, so maybe you have some ability to say, what can I do about it, allow the change to come through. Your person is more hesitant to allow this change to come through. They've kind of quieted a part of themselves that allows them to do some of the emotion. We've also got the Seven of Cups in reverse. So the Seven of Cups in reverse and the Nine of Spheres in the upright. And so trying to hold those where the reflection will work. I think that we'll just go ahead and set them here. But basically, this is your person kind of pulling things together one step at a time. They're aware that there's a lot more out there, that they kind of aren't taking the whole picture into consideration when they talk about this balance. So this perception of balance is their day-to-day perception, but it's because they have walled off a lot of parts of themselves themselves that has multiple impacts. So their inability to allow love to flow back and forth is not new, but it's part of what they're using to shield themselves. We've got the Nine of Spheres, which is kind of this feeling of being all together and this feeling of having this emotional independence that they are feeling like they have. But once again, because they aren't taking the whole thing into consideration, they're still not looking at the big picture. This is something that maybe both of you had been doing, but as you've taken steps back through your learning to look at the big picture, it's been more evident to you, hey, there's more to this. Your person is almost in denial of the fact that there's more to this, not so much in denial that there's more, just they're not prepared to get into it yet. It's very confusing. And so they've got some things cut off so that they can feel decent about things and experience some balance. This is them taking a little bit of a breather, but it's like instead of learning how to properly float down the river, they're holding on to some debris that's going to kind of hold them up, but not really allow them to solve um, their issues. That's hard. That's a very hard place that they're in because they know they've got to let go. Let's take a look at this world card. And when I say they've got to let go, I mean they've got to let go of. I wanted to clarify before I moved away from there. Sorry, because this was about how they're feeling about you, and essentially, they've got they've got a lot that they're choosing not to feel or they're trying not to feel. And what they need to be able to let go of is that desire to hold on to the debris, to try and control the situation so that they can actually go through and release and start to feel it. It's going to throw them right back off of this temperance again. And that's exactly what they're afraid of. It is what's going to happen. It's a legitimate fear, but it's part of what has to happen. And it especially is going to have to happen in order to get things to um, be able to connect. So you've got a lack of closure. The world in reverse here in your backdrop energy is about a cycle that hasn't ended, and it's because no closure has really been developed. And so I don't feel like this is over. I don't feel like I'm ready to walk away from this. I don't feel like I'm ready to even provide my own closure. And in some cases, some of you are saying, oh no, I'm getting to that point. I'm quite ready to provide my own closure. This is just saying that what you're feeling is the part where maybe that closure hasn't yet been attained. And something that it just, that loose ends feeling is what's out there. So we've got the Ace of Spheres, something that has not yet been learned or accomplished, and we have the Devil, and this is what's causing you to not learn or accomplish it. Oh, and again, this is that collective you. So it's both of you who are experiencing something that's kind of drawing you back into one another, but is also holding you back from being able to truly learn and see the big picture. So, both of you, when you experience each other, the attraction has been so great that you've been able to ignore large swaths of the rest of the situation. At certain points, you were able to do that. And so maybe you're past that and you're not feeling that way so much anymore. And you're feeling like, no, I recognize that there are some things that need to change there. You're not yet free of those. That's what this is telling me. It's not yet a thing of the past. There are still some learnings that haven't occurred, still some lessons to do before you're going to be able to get to a place to truly have this closure. And when you get there, your person is going to have to be getting to a place where they're able to provide their own closure too. Because they have got to let go of not necessarily the concept of you, so much as the need to control it. It's like that thing we talk about where you leave the door open, but you don't watch to make sure that somebody is or isn't walking through it. You just kind of abandon the need to control that situation, leave the door open and allow it, and just kind of walk away. So let's take a look at this Eight of Swords. This is the energy that's coming your direction. It's coming for both of you, but you have some choices about it because it is, okay, we've got the King of Swords that has come out. All right, so the King of Swords, which feels exactly like the opposite of this King of Swords that's in the reverse. This is about take a step back, look at the big picture. A lot is going to be freed up for you if you're able to step back and take a look at the big picture. This is something that you can be doing, and it will tie in nicely with some of the changes that will need to occur, because taking that step back and looking at the big picture is going to help to it's going to help to elucidate for you some of the things that need to change and that are creating an issue for you. You also have the Ten of Wands. You're carrying a load, and it's about um, lightening it. Or you can't always drop the load. I don't want to say to drop this load and not carry it. What I would say though is finding ways to lighten it is beneficial. If you've got a situation for burnout at work, for example, you can't just walk away and quit your job. You have to figure out how you're going to mitigate that and get to a place where it feels manageable, and it's just like that. It's a feeling of there's too much. Maybe offload a little bit of that and find someplace else to put it. That's part of what's happening in this Eight of Swords. So it's a feeling of almost anxiety, overthinking, and some of this will be freed up for you and loosened up for you if you just take a step back and drop some of what you can't control. So that's the piece of the Ten of Wands that you're going to want to drop. It's the pieces that you're carrying around that you can't control, but for whatever reason, you're unable to stop worrying about. So that's part of kind of what's heading your direction. But also, you'll know if you want to avoid this, watch for the things that are not really within your control, so not as much worthy of your worry. And then also are, take your step back, take a look and see the big picture of the situation and be open to what you find there. So it may not all be comfortable, but it's going to help you not get wrapped up in this thinking that has been so this devil card feels a lot like obsessive thinking. It feels like not being able to walk away from a concept because of this lack of closure. And they feed each other. Lack of closure creates this creates additional need for closure. And with your person, they haven't been able to handle that cycle. They still experience it to a certain degree. They know that it's there. They're walking away from the emotional side of it right now so that they can feel more balanced with regard to you. But this is a very temporary sort of feeling, and it has that edge of depression. So let's look into that. This Knight of Cups, and oops, I dropped one on the floor. I actually have two of them that fell on the floor that do want to be used. So we've got the Empress in reverse and the Judgment card in the upright that came out for this. Okay. So sometimes looking at that bright light that's there is a little overwhelming for your person. Sometimes it's overwhelming for you. This is part of where this depression comes in. So it's not quite just a pure depression so much as an existential trauma and existential concern. The Empress is that it's feminine energy, but it's a lack of balance there, and it's a lack of feeling evolved, a lack of having evolved, because in your person's case, they have turned off their emotional side. So there are definitely some lessons they haven't quite had the opportunity to learn here. They're still very caught up in some things and haven't figured out how to get past it. But the time of reckoning for that is approaching. So basically, it's not like, hey, if you're not completed by the time that this time of reckoning appears, which is essentially a situation that causes you both to take a look at the big picture. It's not so much that they will miss out. It's going to be that they're going to have to go back and do some additional work. They won't be able to come through and get to that closure that they also seek unless they're able to get past this judgment piece. The world comes after judgment in the tarot. And if you don't pass judgment, you don't get to your happy ending. You get to your, hey, I don't have closure. I'm not quite there yet. So this is a cycle that has perpetuated, but hasn't quite gotten that closure yet that is so much desired and needed on both parts. Whether it means a reconciliation where the two of you come back together to get on the same page, or a reunion where you come back together for more than that. We did a reading on that one a little while ago, and one of the things that we found was everybody was kind of in a different place with reconciliation and reunion. but there was a lot of desire to make things right, a lot of desire to get on the same page. So a lot of you can expect that. Um, you can expect that you're going to have some form of reconciliation, if not reunion. You're going to get to a place where you find this closure, and that can be the reconciliation. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that you provide for one another. So it is something, though, that is coming your way. And in a lot of cases, it's going to come from, you're going to experience that with the other person, but not in all cases. So we've got this King of Swords that comes in the reverse, and we were just talking about how you're going to have this opportunity to look at the big picture, and you're going to have a need to look at the big picture. In the past, that's been part of the issue, and it's been part of what created some of the conflict and the friction. So we've got the Three of Cups that wants to come out to clarify this King of Swords. You were having such a good time that it was really easy to not look at the big picture. It was easy to ignore red flags. You could even tell, like, your person knew they were throwing them. They knew they were throwing these red flags, and they were like, whatever, everything's great right now. So then we've got the Four of Cups, which has come out sideways. I'm going to go ahead and leave it sideways. It came out sideways, and I was like, well, it's a little bit more upright. So the Four of Cups in the upright talks about disappointment. It talks about not wanting to put in a bunch of effort towards something, about not wanting to engage. In the reverse, it's very much the opposite. It's being impressed by something, wanting to engage with it, not being bored or disappointed with it at all. And your person and you have gone back and forth on some things with regard to not necessarily how you feel about one another. The magnetism between the two of you is clear. However, whether or not you were going to go forward with it, because you've got some modicum of self-worth, and your person has some concerns around their vulnerability, but they've made some strides. And so both of you are in the process of learning these difficult lessons about self-worth, about vulnerability, respectively. But you haven't necessarily gotten there yet. So you've got some things that haven't quite been solved completely. And you go back and forth about how you want to handle it. And when you've looked at this and you have known that you kind of weren't looking at the big picture, but you also were kind of okay with that, you were having a really great time. When that fun time sort of wavered, you looked at it and said, hold on, should I be dealing with this? How does that really work here? And so, to some degree, both you and your person have been doing a little bit of that wavering, not about each other once again, but about how should I handle this situation? What would be best as I handle this situation? So let's take a look at this death card. And the death card was, how can you best prepare for the energy that's heading your direction, or that you're heading toward? So you're heading toward a place where, there's a little bit of anxiety in there. There's a little bit of not being sure what to think. Looks like you can quell it a little bit by, setting down some of the concerns about things you have less control over, and by looking at the big picture and stepping back to see how a lot of that shakes out, because a lot of what you may have been blind to here will become a little bit more evident to you here, with the King of Swords, as you take a step back. And you just won't have to spend extra energy on it. It doesn't mean you'll love what you see there. It does mean, though, that you don't have to worry about it anymore. So we've got the Three of Spheres that's coming in the reverse around this death card. So what we were saying with the death card about how you can best prepare for this by seeing change that it comes in and just allowing it to happen. Be aware that the easy change you have already experienced and allowed to happen. What we're looking for now is the sort of change that maybe you have resisted a little bit because it was tough and going to be disruptive to your life. So this Three of Spheres in reverse is about something that you would have to accommodate back into your life, because it's not being very forthcoming. It's not something that's cooperating necessarily with the way that you have your life set up. And you may have to make some adjustments for it. And then we also have the Five of Cups. So it's going to bring forth in you some emotions that maybe you were hoping that you had been past, that you had gotten past. Some things that it may be tough to see the perspective that you have gotten so familiar with, where you have gotten so much better at seeing your perspective and understanding that you needed to broaden that, being able to step back and broaden it. Here's a situation where maybe you've got a blind spot or two. So watch for those. Watch for a situation that you can't seem to make the best of it, where you feel like ordinarily you would be able to do so. But also, like I said, watch for those things that, yeah, you acknowledge that it's a change, but it might be a little bit messy, might be a little disruptive to your life. And yet, allowing those changes to occur is the key to getting successfully through this Eight of Swords energy that you are heading towards. So make no mistake, this Eight of Swords energy is a positive thing because it helps you to kind of sort out what needs to happen next. But it's not a comfortable place to be because we can see that the backdrop between you and your person is that of not feeling like you have that closure and not quite being able to let go enough to get there. So that's kind of it's a tough place to be. There's a little bit of that depression, a little bit of that denial of the big picture going on your person's side. And maybe you're moving past that. That is going to be the key to some of your success here. So as we go into the extended, let's do what we were talking about earlier. Let's look at how your person is feeling about you, but let's also look at this energy that we're looking at how they feel, along with this energy that is impacting them. But let's look at this area where you're headed and kind of how things look and the energy that you're moving into that, and a little bit more of what you need to know about it as you do. So the link for the extended will be right down beneath this. You'll be able to click on it and get to my Vimeo page and go from there. I'll see you there, or I will see you again in another reading. So here we are with pile two. Pile two actually has my favorite fluorite specimen I've ever had or ever held in my hand. Not sure why that is. It's cool looking for sure, but there's more to it than that. I just love it. I'm going to be reading for you with the Ciro Marchetti. It's a special edition Marchetti tarot, and then I will clarify with the Tarot of the Spirit. These two, you might have seen them together in the past. If you've gotten a personal reading, they work well together. So we're going to start with how your person is feeling about you and the relationship as we move into the second half of February. So just kind of seeing how things are starting out. It feels like things have been on the move since the beginning of the month. Definitely there was a lot happening then. It wasn't simple at that time. And since then, we've seen a lot in the readings. We've been reminded of the lessons and the path. Um, Okay, so both of those cards want to come out. We've got the Eight of Coins and the Hermit, with the Hermit coming up in reverse. So what we have here, the Hermit is talking about messages that they don't feel like they have all of their wisdom lined up. So they've maybe asked some questions, but they don't have all the answers. However, there is a sense of feeling like they've got this, feeling like there's a better sense of emotional self mastery that's happening within them, despite the fact that they don't have all the answers. So, that is actually a really it feels like a healthy place to be. We've been talking about all of this time here in the last few months. We've been talking about not being able to stay comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. And that is almost like what your person has going on here with regard to you. It's not quite comfortable, but they're getting better at understanding what their actual needs are, understanding what their actual emotions are around the subject. They don't have all their wisdom lined up, though. They know there are some things that they still don't understand. So we'll look into that a little bit more when we clarify, and that's one that I think we may take into the extended as well. We'll see. Sometimes I get in there and I feel like, all right, here's a situation where we need to look a little bit more deeply. We get this surfacey energy, and then we'll clarify to get that next level. And if we feel like we still need it, we go into the extended to get in and do the deep dive. So let's look at that energy that is most prevalent as you guys are going across the month. This is like the energetic backdrop. Oh, came right out. All right, so we have the Eight of Cups. There's a sense of returning to something, but there's also a sense of not knowing the path. Sometimes the Eight of Cups in reverse means each of those things, and today I feel like it means both. The sense of return. Sometimes with the Eight of Cups in the upright, it feels like walking away, and that is the implication that there has been a walking away, but there is also a sense of returning, if not just an energetic return, but that is a significant return. There's also, like I said, that sense of not necessarily knowing the right path to take or knowing how to do what it is. That you guys are trying to accomplish, because this is really energy that's for both of you. It's a little bit of a, sometimes it's aimless meandering, but this time it's more just not being sure of what the path is. So that's the energy that's coming up. That's not necessarily a bad thing. That's the energy that's prevalent across the second half of February. So it's coming up, but you may already kind of be into it. But what we want to look at here is what you'll be moving into. So you're always kind of floating from one place to another, moving into a different type of energy than the one that you currently are in. And it's going to be because of other things that are happening, other people's free will, your own free will. But when we look at where you're headed right now, just based on your current trajectory without taking into account what could happen, this is kind of where that's what we're looking at. So we see that there's a tower moment coming. Um, hmm. And that Hierophant was it was an honorable mention. Didn't want to come out, but essentially, I think it might still be right here. Yeah. Essentially, it is, this is spiritual guidance, spiritual leadership. It is in your world. There is a place for you to turn. There are people for you to ask about questions that you may have surrounding the subject of your tower. So something is going to change for you there, and it's really more a realization. So we've been saying, like in your person's situation, that sometimes their household is changing and sometimes it's their perception of their life or their perception of their household and their environment that's really changed. So maybe the household itself hasn't changed so much, but they realized, oh no, this isn't what I wanted, or something to that effect. Well, here, this is that sort of energy again, only it feels like it's maybe not so strong and it may be impacting both of you. So I don't feel like this is the kind of energy that turns your life upside down, but I think it is something that makes you stop and think. So if there are big towers and little towers, and you can think of towers as being good or bad, this one seems to be not as big. It's not little, but it's the magnitude is in the medium range. You are not gonna um, it doesn't turn your life upside down, like I was saying. However, it's still going to be something to note. So we'll ask here in a little bit what you guys can be doing, or what would help you as you're moving toward this tower energy, because this has to happen in order to break things down so that you can use those pieces to build new things up. Again, it's not always going to be a negative thing, but it does mean the destruction of something that's currently standing. So, from a figurative standpoint. So let's look at a critical energy that's impacting you at this time. A critical energy. Oh, springtime. We've got that springtime vibe coming out again. That's been happening periodically here in some of these readings. So the Fool is the beginning of the tarot. It's the 0 out of 22. So it goes 0 up to 21. So there's a total of 22 major arcana cards. The Fool is at the beginning of the journey. It's stepping into the unknown. Sometimes it can be actually feeling like a fool, but that's not how it feels here. This is something that makes you want to try something new or do something new. That's an exciting kind of energy. Have to see a little bit more about that when we clarify. And now let's jump into this hidden energy. About this is what you can't see from where you're currently standing, but if you could, to it would help to ease a misunderstanding that currently exists between you and your person. That's that's the way that I wanted to phrase this question for this reading, and I've been doing it a little bit more that way lately because I think it's helps to guide it a little bit. So there's change that's been going on. You may not be fully aware of the change that's been happening in your person's world. They may not have been in a position to tell you, or necessarily in a position to put it all into words. They might not be there yet. I don't know what this fool is. This may be a tendency to want to move forward. And with this healthy current energy and how your person is feeling about you, I wouldn't put it past them to say, it feels like things have thawed out. This reminds me of springtime. Things are no longer frozen. I'm feeling a little bit more of a sense of self mastery, even if I don't feel like I know everything right now. There is still this sense of return, and yet, what is the tower? So I guess there's been some change happening on your person's part, but there's also, and we've seen this message a couple times before now, there's change that's been happening on your part that is potentially more than you realize, or in some places that you may not fully realize. So you may be a little surprised by either the magnitude or the nature of some of those changes. And that could be true for your person or for you, because this is really, until it's tried and tested, it's a little bit hidden for each of you, for both of you, about one another as well. Um, so let's ask that question now: how you can best prepare for this tower experience. How can you best be prepared for the tower experience? And it's a tower that, this reading is about you and your soulmate. However, some of the energy is just going to be very individual. And in some cases, it's individual, but it's happening on a parallel timeline. So when you're in separation, you may be both learning lessons that are best learned in separation. However, your progress along the path of those lessons, that progress along that path that you guys aren't sure how to traverse, every time one of you makes a step forward, it's good for the other one. So you working on your issues is going to benefit you, but it's not just going to be you, it's also going to benefit your person. So if you're looking for a way to show your love without actually communicating, keep working. Okay, so we have the Four of Wands that has come out here um, in reverse, talking about how best to prepare for the energy that is coming your way. And this is about what we were just talking about up here. It's about not, okay, it's about being able to be comfortable in a situation that is uncomfortable. But it is also about allowing these things. So I mentioned, I felt compelled to mention with the tower, and I don't always feel like I need to say it. It's got to knock some things down so that you can use the pieces to build something new. And this is basically saying to allow things to fall out of place for a little while here. So you may be someone who likes to establish a fair amount of control of your environment. You may be, and this is you, either one of you, and it feels like that is true, but maybe in different ways. Um, Both of you may have to back off of that and ease up on that a little bit in order to allow this tower to happen. You may have to you may have to redefine success. um, that's interesting. Let's get into this. Let's go ahead and clarify. So, starting with the Eight of Coins up here and the Hermit in reverse. Remember, this is how your person is feeling about you and about the relationship. And with the Eight of Coins, it's them saying, you know what? I feel like I kind of have this. I've gained some emotional self mastery, like not all of it. There's definitely a sense of not all of the answers being there yet, not everything having been figured out. We have the Death card in reverse. There are some changes that haven't been made yet, but that need to be. Definitely some changes happening in the background. You guys are aware of the changes that have happened here, but it's the impact of those changes that maybe is sitting a little in that unknown area. This, though, talks about some of those changes that we haven't yet made. And so those we've been seeing come up in some of the different readings. Look for the thing you haven't solved. Look for the thing that you haven't quite dealt with. It'll be the thing out of place. It'll be the thing that you feel a little bit uncomfortable about fixing. So that's what you've been to this person, is bringing those types of issues to the fore for them, and They feel like they've been a little slow on the uptake as far as the lessons have been concerned, and definitely don't have them all. And of course, the thing is, everyone learns at their own pace, so there's no reason for them to feel less than for not having figured everything out just yet. Especially when they feel like they're kind of being hit over and over by having to fix some things or change some things that maybe they find especially difficult to change. It's those things that you put off until later. Let's get another card for this, and see what else there is to know, especially because it feels like, oop, I dropped one and we want it. Let's see, what is this? This is the Mother of Fire in reverse. That's like the Queen of Wands in reverse. Okay, so this is, once again, it's that Queen of Wands who is doing things for the right reason and who is very capable of making sure that it's all for the right reasons. So in other words, that Queen of Wands that's in the upright, that Mother of Fire in the upright, who will do things any way she can. She's very much a person who pushes things forward. She's very capable of moving things forward. In the reverse, though, she is more discerning about the way that she decides to move forward. And that is something that your person is also feeling like you've taught them and like they've learned. This is part of what has them feeling like they've built a little bit of that emotional self mastery. They know how to some degree, slow down time. So you know how when you get into, if you've been watching this channel, you've heard this before, because it's an awesome, awesome skill and you can develop it. So when you get into a car accident or you're something is happening to you, it'll feel like you're everything in your reality is sort of slowing down during the time that it's happening. It's a really strange phenomenon. Usually, it's something that our brain does for us when we're in one of those situations and turns everything into kind of slow motion, but it's something that you can intentionally do yourself. And essentially, what you do is you stretch out time like it's beads on a string, and the string is stretchy, and you stretch it out, and so the beads have farther. Those are the events. They have farther in between them. That's like a visual representation of how it feels, but essentially, you're better able to manage your responses to things, better able to pick your words, things like that. Your person has experienced something a little bit like this, where if they had a tendency to turn tail and run out of a huge, immense fear, maybe they've become more aware of it now. So I'm not saying they've solved everything, and definitely they don't think they've solved everything, but they've gotten to a place where they're better able to define the problem. You just keep being this source of these lessons for them, and that is something that they have a hard time ignoring. So we will get a little bit deeper into that in the extended, to understand this is a complicated way that they feel about you going into February. But again, it has this air of a very healthy stage in their development. So it's not all the way there, but it's a good stage. Let's take a look at the Eight of Cups, and this is the energy that the two of you are in. This feels like an energetic return, but it also feels like not exactly knowing the path and not knowing um, where you need to be or how to traverse it. So there's a perspective not yet gained. We definitely see that your person is feeling it. You may also be feeling it. That's part of the reason that it's difficult to know the path to take. Let's see here. Where's the one that turned over? I want this one. I want this. No. Okay. Seven of Earth. So we've got this is like the Seven of Pentacles. This one's called the Garden, and it's all about investment. So there's been this emotional investment that the two of you have made in one another, but in some cases that's a little bit incongruent with the way you've spent your time. So there's been more of an emotional investment than your time in each other's physical presence really has been. So it's like it's not the same balance. And there's also a lot happening in the spiritual realm that has aided in that investment, that emotional investment. But it's not, again, balanced with what's happening in the physical. Um, Something about that is causing this to be a little bit confusing and to not know the path to tread. And it makes sense because if you have had a lot of experience communicating and interacting in the spiritual realm, you'll gain this sort of familiarity together that would encourage you to be able to come back toward one another energetically speaking. But coming into the physical, that becomes a little bit difficult. How do you know how to do that? There's not necessarily been a phone call or a text or something that helps to clear the path and clear the air for you. So there's a missing perspective, and this feels awkward. It feels like they are maybe having a hard time approaching, but they feel pretty decent about you from an emotional standpoint. They're starting to develop what they need in order to have that nice, healthy outlook. Um, but let's take a look at this tower coming up because that's coming up for both of you as well. That's another one we're probably going to have to check into. Where'd it go? We're probably going to have to check into when we go into the extended. Oh man, where did this card go? I swear I saw something turn over. There it was. It was the moon. It's mystery. How clever of it to hide in the deck like that. So it's the moon card. There's mystery involved. There is this concept of, it's funny that it hid like that because it's a concept of kind of hiding almost, and it's it's the it's the thing that you're aware that you need to solve, but for whatever reason, your brain allows it to just be glossed over. Your person has allowed these things to be glossed over for quite some time, and then they ran across you who jogged this phenomenon in them where they started to realize some things that they knew, but for whatever reason had just never really thought about that much, had never allowed it to rise all the way into consciousness and think, wait a minute, what is this? What is this? Why is this the way that it is? So these are going to be some of the lessons that are coming to you, both of you. That, again, not necessarily bad, not necessarily huge, but you're going to be like, why didn't I think of this before? We've also got the Brother of Earth. So it's going to cause you to stop and take stock of the situation. The Brother of Earth is it is like the Knight of Pentacles, but the way that this one feels, it's, how the Knight of Pentacles is all about steady forward motion, and it gets there, but it's not necessarily a quick process. There is a plodding and slow sort of progress to the Brother of Earth. However, it will grind to a halt when needed, and that's what it feels like here. It feels like that Brother of Earth has stopped and said, "Okay, I'm here to investigate this thing that has popped up in the background over and over, but hasn't really been there long enough to be seen." Those mysteries start coming out, and that's maybe where some of these towers are. It will start to elucidate for you why some lessons haven't come as easily as you would hope and as you might expect, because there were some things that were hidden in plain view. I think that's the best way to explain this energy. These things are hidden from you in plain view so that you won't even think they look strange as you're going through your thoughts. But then at some point, you're going to look at it and say, wait a minute, go back. What is that? And that's the stop, and that's the item that's hidden in plain view, but still has this air of mystery. It's going to cause a tower. It's going to cause some reevaluation of emotion, and this happens for both of you. So that's interesting because that's the energy that you're heading into toward the end of the month. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Let's look at this Fool. Um, we don't want any of these cards that just fell out here, but we do. There we go. Want this one. The Nine of Wind. And the Nine of Wind, okay, so there's a lot of anxiety about it. And then Sister of Wind, there's a lot of thinking, a lot of intellect, a lot of logic going into this decision, a lot of consideration of communication. The Sister of Wind is like the Page of Air, Page of Swords. In the reverse, it is a skittish sort of emotion. It is not being too sure of yourself, but still there's this desire to jump in. There's this springtime feeling, and there's a lot of anxiety. So there's that feeling that I was sensing of, I want to come have this conversation. I would love to clear the air and have a conversation with you. There's also, no, you know what? Maybe I'm not quite ready. I haven't learned enough of what I need to learn. There's a new perspective that I haven't quite gained yet. And what in the world is going on with this thing that was sitting in plain view that I now suddenly find that I need to think about? Let me go back and do some thinking. And so there's definitely that element hanging off the side of the Fool, which is the let's try this, let's have a conversation kind of energy. Let's look at this death card now. So the death card is that hidden energy. It's the change that's happening. There's the Fool in reverse. It's the change that's happening in the background and that has happened with you, but that you may not be able to quite characterize because you haven't quite been in the situation to be able to address it yet. There is definitely an element of fear of moving forward. Almost, it feels like almost a social anxiety kind of thing. And it's interesting because these changes have happened, but it's difficult to go out and test them because there is a reluctance to go out to test that. I mean, you wouldn't be put in a situation, you won't, it's a reluctance to partner up. It's a reluctance, and this is on both of your ends. There's not even that you aren't partnering up, but you may find yourself shrinking away from partnerships with other people that aren't romantic or that are not your person, that are, you may see this starting to impact you in other places, and it may feel almost like an anxiety that is a social, I don't want to jump into this, I don't want to take a leap, and definitely a sense of being disinclined to jump into partnership. And the sad thing about it is, if you were able to alleviate that fear and jump into it anyway, you guys would both be amazed at how much you had learned. But this isn't something that you can push. So I feel like these tower experiences, and we'll look more deeply into that when we get to the extended as well, but I feel like these tower experiences are going to help you here, to help you understand what you need, to be able to overcome this, and that's going to help you to pull up the edge on some things. All of this sort of fits together and flows together a little bit better if you're able to get over the hump. The tower is going to allow you to see what you need to see in order to go where you need to go to get over the hump. But you have to allow it to come in. So maybe that's another thing we look at when we get into the extended, but let's see what happens here. So we've got the Wheel of Fortune. There you are, having um, the reiterated lesson of being comfortable in a situation that is not a comfortable situation, but you will actually get there. You will actually get to a place where you will say, I am legitimately not bothered by this. I can go several days without being bothered by this, because at first it's a day or two, and then it comes back with a vengeance, and you realize I'm not there yet. But it extends out, so you'll get to a place where you're feeling actually not bothered. And then you've got that balance. That's the feeling. That's a hard won balance. That's what you're headed for ultimately. Your success by yourself, with your lessons, with your person, all hinges up upon your ability to work through this lesson. And these towers, these towers, again, I don't think are going to be so bad, but they help you to unlock some things that clarify this path, that remove some barriers for you here. That I'm not sure they're going to remove barriers for you here. I think this is more your person. This whole area here is more your person and how they're feeling. But these towers are going to be important for you, and it's going to move toward your balance, which is what you actively will need to strive for. So that's what you can be doing to help to improve things in the energy where you're headed. So we're going to go into the extended now. Thanks for hanging in there with me. This has been really an interesting reading because it's like you're in the trenches, you're in the thick of it, you're doing the learning, and it's amazing to watch. This is progress. This is progress. There's this beautiful progress, but there's also this sense of, okay, keep going, keep working on the comfort within the discomfort, keep working on making sure you know what it is that you want. And as you get in here and you start to see these things that are in plain view, but you suddenly realize may be out of place, be open to that. Be open to the fact that things may not be what you always thought they were. So we're going to go off into the extended here. If this one is resonating with you, this is right along the lines of it's connected with many of the readings that we've been doing lately. These have all been very connected. Go ahead and subscribe if this one fits you. It's part of the story that's been coming out. Um, and hit like if you like the video. I'm going to go into the extended. The link will be down below. And in that, we're going to look a little bit more deeply into what's happening with your person emotionally and around you. We're going to look a little bit more at this energy of where you're headed to and what you're expected to do about it. Because it's a little bit of a kind of a, you can only make really small progress, and then something unlocks, and then you can make more small progress, and so on. So it's not a quick process, but it is a constant one, and it's interesting to watch you guys along the path because the progress is just beautiful, seeing it actually happen. So I'll see you over in the extended. Thank you so much, and best of luck with this. I'll look to see you in another reading. All right, so getting started with pile three. This is another one of my favorite fluorite specimens. Just love this. I have a few of them, and they just always seem to be very refreshing to me. Um, we're going to get started with how your person is feeling about things as we go into the second half of the month. So, we're looking at kind of the overall soulmate situation as we go into the second half of the month, but let's start out with how they're feeling. So it's how they're feeling about you, it's how they're feeling about the relationship that surrounds the two of you. And I'm going to be reading for you with the Healing Light Tarot. I'll clarify with Prisma Visions. Prisma Visions here in a moment. Okay. Um, that one didn't actually want to come out. This one does. All right. So let's see. Wow. Okay. So we've got the sun. The sun is, wow, that's a really fabulous way to be feeling about you. It's about you bringing forth that happiness. And so it's not just that they have made you happy. It's that they've learned from you. You've shown them what happiness can be. So they had some idea of what they thought happiness was previously, and you've reframed things for them. That's a really strong and wonderful statement. Let's see what else happens. So as we're going into the back half of the month, they are recognizing, your person is recognizing that their understanding of happiness has changed as a result of you, and you are sort of this new standard of happiness, I guess I'd say. Let's look at that energy that's most prevalent as you guys are going across the month. Energy that's most prevalent. We're going to take this card on top, the Fool in reverse. So the Fool is a card of jumping into something new, doing something that is possibly risky, possibly emotionally risky. It's the unknown. And when we have it in the reverse here, we have more of a feeling that you don't want to jump into that, or hesitancy. So there's a little bit of that between the two of you, if not on both your parts. So oftentimes when you get in and you watch a tarot reading, you'll notice they'll say, the reader will often say, you could identify with one side of the reading more than the other. And it's because we're jumping in and we're getting the energy between you and your person. And sometimes it's difficult to tell where it's going to be a little bit heavier and where it's going to be lighter. So this one feels like it's a shared energy, but it may still be a little bit heavier on your person's side. It's a feeling of not wanting to jump into something new, and almost what one of the things I'm getting off of it is that it's like a hesitancy that is born in a fear of some kind. So it's an unwillingness, but it's almost an inability due to that fear. So that we'll have to see what comes out with it when we go to clarify. Let's see what's coming your way in the energy. So this is going to be what you're heading toward, just with basically the trajectory that you're on right now. Your free will play into it. Your person's free will play into it. There will be the free will of others close to you that could potentially play into it. But without taking all of that into consideration, it's the Queen of Pentacles. That's the energy that is that you'd be moving into right now, and that's a really stable, nurturing. It's a great, beautiful energy. I love the Queen of Pentacles. As far as energy to be in of all the queens, definitely can be fun to be in the Queen of Wands kind of passion, but that one can get a little bit out of hand sometimes. The logic of the Queen of Swords is super useful, but can also sometimes you need a little bit more than that. And the Queen of Cups is all about love. Um, the Queen of Cups is all about love, where the Queen of Pentacles is more has more of a practical edge and more of a nurturing and a supportive sort of feel to it. But also there is that feeling of self-worth, that feeling of confidence in that self-worth. That's what comes out the most for me in this energy of what's coming your direction. And again, this is shared energy. So your person has, remember at the beginning of the year, if you guys have been watching this for a while, we kept seeing the Ace of Swords come out. And it just kept coming out. And it was this new truth that your person was looking to understand a little bit better. They were looking to understand what to do with this truth. They were looking to figure out how to absorb it into their their worldview. And in some cases, that was a challenging thing. In some cases, that has continued to be a challenging thing. But there are some realizations here in your person's energy, even if they're not looking to move forward right now. That increase of self worth feels like it's shared energy, but it's manifesting very differently for the two of you. So let's take a look and see what another critical energy is that would be impacting you at this time. Yes, those of you who watch me know this is one of my favorite questions, because some of the things that come out here will absolutely turn the tide of the reading and feel pretty different. So this is going to be a critical energy that's acting upon you at this time, but it doesn't necessarily have to be coming from either one of you. So we've got the Magician card in reverse. And so the Magician card in reverse talks about a lack of a feeling of an ability to manifest. So it's about that manifestation ability, but it's feeling specifically like your hands are tied. Now, this energy feels like it is shared also. So it's something that you might both be feeling like your hands are tied and there is something that you'd like to move forward with but can't. Or in this case, I feel that paralysis by fear. But that's more on your person's side. There's something that both of you would like to be able to move forward with and feel like you can't. I the easy answer is a reconciliation between the two of you. That's something that it feels like both of you want to move toward, but it's tough to define the path. Just wanting to move that direction is not necessarily enough. Let's see what kind of hidden energies want to come out for you. So this is going to be something that you can't see from where you're standing, but would be helpful for you in understanding a little bit more about your person's position. It would help to clear something up for you. I like asking the question that way in this context. Okay, so we've got the Nine of Wands. And okay, what has been happening in the time that you've known your person, and for some of you, it's been more of a whirlwind recent experience. For others of you, this has been something that has drawn out over the course of years. Okay. And so, what you may need to realize that may have colored your impressions of things and would be helpful for you to understand is that your person had, when they met you, they were in a place of working on some things, working on healing some things. They showed you some defenses that if given the opportunity, they would not pull out again. They would handle things a little differently if given the opportunity. with regard to the defenses that they showed you and that they employed against you. Some of them walked away and ghosted and wish they hadn't, but now they feel like it's too late for them to come back, but there's something here about the fact that they wish that they had been able, not necessarily that, but they wish that they had handled things a little bit differently. Um, so we know that you're moving into this energy of the Queen of Pentacles, which is an incredibly solid, nurturing, fantastic energy. But let's see what you can be doing to best prepare for this as it comes in. What would help you as you're working through this energy, moving toward this beautiful, brilliant Queen of Pentacles energy? What would help you to realize or to do as you're moving toward that? And we've got the Four of Cups. Okay, so there are going to be some places in your life where, if you take a closer look, you're going to realize that they no longer ring true to you, or they no longer are as exciting to you as they once were. You need to honor that. So maybe it is the first thing that pops into my mind is the people that you are around. If you have a strong desire to be around the people that you intentionally spend time around, that can be a very rewarding experience, whether you're feeling introverted or extroverted, or whether, whatever your natural tendency, you will receive more energy and build more positive energy if you are excited about the people that you're around. If you've got people that you are around out of a sense of duty, or that you just sort of tolerate, that takes a little bit of energy away as well. Again, regardless of your position on being an introvert versus an extrovert, it's one of those things that will take energy away from just about anyone. And so the idea here is yours may be people, yours may be some other situation, but try and identify those situations in your life that don't add energy, that take away from you for one reason or another. Look into why they take energy away, and then see if maybe there's something that you can do to either change that or no longer be in that situation. If it's as simple as just not asking this person out to lunch anymore that drains you of energy, maybe just don't ask them out to lunch anymore. In most cases, it won't be that simple, but it's the example. So this is about finding those things that don't add to you and add to your experience, and maybe just letting them go. This is going to help to bring you toward this really solid, fantastic energy of the Queen of Pentacles with the high self worth and just so much going for her. That's a fantastic sort of energy. Let's jump in and clarify here with the Prisma Visions Tarot. We're going to start with the Sun. And this is interesting. So I already think I know what my favorites are as far as going into the extended. And so I think I want to look more deeply into this Sun card, because that's a really, and we don't see a ton of that. We don't see a ton of that. This channel is entirely too realistic, and we, we don't see too much of the Sun. But here, they're just acknowledging this is really how you make them feel. This Seven of Chalices, so this is like the Seven of Cups. Seven of Chalices is about having a lot of options, but not necessarily in this case about having a lot of clarity about those options. Here we see things starting to clear up, and starting to be a little bit easier to understand. So the light dawned on your person previously, but it wasn't necessarily an immediate realization of what it all meant. They had to go through and think about what it was that made them happy, truly made them happy, and not be in denial about it, because maybe as what I was saying when I first put the card down, they might have thought they knew what that meant, but then they later found out through you that there was more to it. So this is more of an acceptance and a realization of that, even though it doesn't necessarily mean that it constitutes movement, but we'll see about that, because that's the energy that's prevalent as you're moving across this month. But we also see that you're both moving into this Queen of Pentacles energy. So let's take another card for this to clarify the Sun card here. And we've got The world in reverse, because things aren't over. Something isn't over. There is unresolved energy, there is unresolved experience between the two of you, and some of this really it's just starting to clear up for your person. Um, and some of the clouds are starting to drift off. Some of them the fog is starting to burn off. Is more what it feels like from this sun, and this is a memory of happiness more than a current happiness, and it's more a realization also of here's what it is that makes me happy. So that's how your person is feeling about you. You're the one that makes them happy, but things aren't quite over yet. They're just starting to really get some clarity around that now. So let's take a look at this Fool card. I think as we go into the extended, we're definitely going to want to go deeper into this because this is great information, but I don't feel like it's quite enough. We'll see how it plays into, especially this Magician card and this Fool card. But just in general, we'll see how everything plays together to see how we want to ask the questions in the extended. But I'm pretty sure we need to understand more about how your person feels about you, and things seem to have shifted a little bit in that area um, over the past couple of weeks. So let's take a look at the Fool card and get some clarifiers for this one. And remember that that Fool card in reverse is about not jumping into something new. So we have the Three of Swords in reverse that's come out for this one, and that is about it's okay. So it's feeling better about something that was really painful, but still not all of this together being feeling better about something that's been really painful, still not feeling like they can move forward or you can move forward, but things are still moving very slowly. The Ace of Pentacles represents a new beginning. It represents a new door opening, and this card actually shows us a new door opening. So that's really a great thing, but the Ace of Pentacles is not a quick energy. It is not something that happens quickly. So there's still this imbalance, and I'm surprised we don't see anything that shows that yet because I feel it. But there's a little bit of a I'm not prepared to move forward. I'm not sure how to navigate this path. But I know some things about it, and this is your person's energy only because that's what we were asking for. But between the two of you, you're very aware of one another. You're very aware of increasingly aware of how you make one another feel, or how you make how the other person makes you feel in any case. There's not necessarily a lot of clarity about how you make them feel on your part, and vice versa. Let's look into this Queen of Pentacles. So this is a very special energy. It's a great place to be going. Just a fantastic place to be headed. Looks like there's a little bit of a delay as you're moving there, but it's an inevitability. There's an inevitability to this energy and to this overall feeling between the two of you. Um, Things are moving slowly, but this tells us it's really moving surely, that things are continuing to progress forward, but there's more that needs to be healed, more that needs to be done. And we recently had a reading that showed we really have to continue to focus on the lessons. It's not, I mean, so it's also about your person and your relationship with your person. But what happens with the lessons is they will change the relationship with your person, and in some cases your perception of your person so considerably that there are definitely lessons that have to be learned in separation. So a lot of you are in separation right now and wondering, when will we be back together? And so every time we ask that question, what we typically get is, here's what has to happen in order for you to come back together. So that's where I'm going to go. Those are the questions that I want to ask. And the reading that we had a couple of days ago, a few days ago, I guess, was about it was I'm trying to remember what the original question was that we asked, but essentially it was, I think it was just looking for new messages. But what we got was, you need to refocus. You need to refocus on the lessons that you're learning. That is part of what I'm feeling here as well with this 10 of Swords. So the 10 of Swords is it's a card of pain. It's a card of a painful ending. And it's a it's a feeling that I'm getting from this card that talks about confronting that feeling and really being in it. It has to be that pain has to be felt as it removes as it leaves the body. It doesn't necessarily come out in the ways that you might expect, but it has to be dealt with. And this is part of what has to happen for both of you. But again, it's going to take very different shapes as it happens for the two of you as you go through the healing that moves you toward this Queen of Pentacles. And we will definitely look at what that could be. Let's look at this magician as well. So, this is an energy that is impacting you significantly right now. It's impacting both of you. Had that feeling of a shared energy, but it's that feeling of having your hands tied. We talked about it being around reconciliation between the two of you and getting on the same page and feeling like, but that's only part of it. There's more. There's a general feeling of I can't manifest my happiness right now, and this is just one way that it shows up. We see that in this current energy as well. So we've got there's a lack of trust and a lack of trust in personal discernment right now. So that's your trust in your personal discernment and your person's trust in their personal discernment. Those things, it's without that intact, it's very hard to have the confidence to manifest anything. It's like not having the support in within that you need. And there's still some hiding from the truth. So it's very difficult to manifest without everything open and moving in the same direction. And here with the Ten of Chalices, with this lack of trust in the discernment, the personal discernment, that creates a little bit of that. It stops things and throws the rhythm off just enough that manifestation becomes very difficult. But the Ace of Swords in reverse, this kind of working around the truth. It's not flatly ignoring the truth, but there is something on both sides. Again, it's going to look pretty different for each of you. And between you and your person will not be ignoring the same truths in many cases, or working around the truth in the same ones in many cases. Look for a place that you are very uncomfortable with the truth, so that maybe you're not flat out denying it. Because I get the sense that there's not a flat out denial of the truth. However, it's a place where it's going to be beneficial for you to look in there a little bit more deeply and say, okay, hold on. Maybe I acknowledge something is a little bit different from the way that I've been thinking about it. Or it can take a number of forms. It'll be something small and relatively innocuous like that, but it's going to change things, and just the act of changing that is something that will significantly impact the energy of this magician card, or that manifestation energy. That's true for both of you, but I'm just going to go ahead and give you the message because you're the one listening. So let's look into this hidden energy. We have the Nine of Wands that came up. So this is your person still guarding a wall. When the two of you met, when you interacted, your person was still defensive about something. They were still working through something, still guarding a wall. And we have another Nine of Wands coming out to support it. And then one more card down here, the Nine of Chalices, a lot of nines. Okay, so that's the Nine of Cups. This is the Nine of Wands. It's the equivalent of the Nine of Cups. Chalices are cups in this deck. When your person came together with you, they thought they knew what they wanted. They thought that they knew how to work through some of the things that they were in the process of working through. They thought that that was all going to work out fairly well. There was a bit of a hiccup, though, as they realized this relationship was not what they expected. And one of the ways in which it was not what they expected was this Nine of Chalices. So, all of a sudden having a realization that what they thought was their wish fulfillment turns out not to be. And so they are working through the recognition of this now. The clouds are clearing, the sun is coming out, and they're recognizing you are that happiness for them. Things are not resolved, things are not over, but they're also not necessarily moving very quickly. even though there's this inevitability about it. There's also this feeling of having to face the music with this painful ending and pain that you need to not walk away from, which is similar to this truth that if you're working around the truth, you're going to really clear things up for yourself by being confronting it a little bit more directly. So there's a lot in this about how your person now can say they sort of regret the way that they've behaved or wish they had handled things differently. But in reality, what's happened is they've had some shifts in what they even perceive as their own happiness. So let's take a look at this Four of Cups. This was about how you can prepare. Okay, so we've got the Five of Pentacles and the Sun. This is again about recognition of what's going on within you. So remember, this Four of Cups was about finding those things that don't add to you, that don't make you feel better about what you are, what you do. Go ahead and let them float away, let them go away. If you have to unhook them and let them go, that's a good way to go. Now, there are going to be some challenges as you do this, and some things are going to feel like they don't want to be unhooked because it'll make you feel less safe. So that there's a recognition of that, and understanding that this is going to be a process for you. So it's like if you clean out a closet more than once, what you'll notice is you'll get rid of a bunch of things in the first wave. Under the surface, your mind is working through some things. And if you go through that closet again, there'll be some additional things that you'll be ready to part with. If you go through it a third time and so on, you'll notice that each time you're able to part with a little bit more. And this is a recognition that there are going to be some things that you won't immediately be able to part with. It'll be that you aren't going to be able to just dump everybody in your life that doesn't bring you happiness. That's not even necessarily the way you would want to do it. And so there will be some discernment. There will be, and that's something that's feeling a little bit threatened right now. There will be some facing of the music, this feeling of the pain that has this a painful ending that hasn't quite been faced, that still needs to be dealt with so that it can be behind you so that you can move on. This is true of both of you, but it's going to take different forms. This is also true of both of you, which what I'm saying here is that the form that your lessons take that may look different for you, even if you're learning kind of some of the same things. And learning how to remove from your life what is no longer helpful for you is a super important lesson. Both of you would really benefit from learning as you move into this Queen of Pentacles energy, but it's going to have some challenges, and there will be some places where it doesn't feel great, but it's going to ultimately be worth doing that work. So I think as we go into the extended here, this is pretty intense for a second half of the month reading, especially when it's a short month. So we're going to look into definitely your person's feelings, but we're also going to look into this. So this is that energy that you're in, kind of toward, and the energy that you're going toward, because it's a shift from operating in fear to not operating in fear, and rather operating more in trust and allowance, allowing emotions, allowing things to come through you. So what is that going to look like? We'll take a closer look at that. And we're, again, like I said, we're going to take a closer look at how your person is feeling about things, because that'll shed a little bit of light on what it is that they're working through and what they need to do. So if this one resonated with you, please hit subscribe. Please hit like. There's a link to the extended down below. I'll see you there. Otherwise, I'll see you again in another reading.